The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of February 25th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Coman.
Here.
And Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Here.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, public statements are received at different times depending on the item. I'll call on the City Clerk to call for public statements at the appropriate time. If you wish to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and place it in the tray next to the speaker's podium. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on today's agenda or on a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda public statements. If you're here to speak on an item not listed on the meeting agenda, you'll be called first to speak. Statements are given a 2-minute time limit per speaker, 20 minutes total for all non-agenda item public statements. If you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda, I'll call for you at the appropriate time. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda?
Mayor Go, we've not received any speaker cards for non-agenda items this evening. We've received one speaker card for agenda item 3A.
Which will call upon that speaker later after staff's presentation. Next item, please.
Reports item 3A, staff report from the City Attorney regarding changes to the Brown Act.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Good afternoon, members of the council. This afternoon, Deputy City Attorney Ashley Zambrano is going to be presenting to you a report on some changes that have been made to the Brown Act laws and recently enacted by our California legislature and approved by the governor's office and the governor himself. And while there are several changes to the Brown Act, tonight our focus is on one particular aspect, and I want to emphasize that we really need your direction tonight. Time is of the essence. We need to alter your council resolution, and in order to do that, we have to come back with another resolution for your consideration. And the sooner we do that, the more time we have not only for staff to adjust, but for the public to adjust. And so with that, I will turn it over to Ashley Zambrano.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As the City Attorney just previewed for you, I am going to talk specifically about Senate Bill 707, new legislation that was signed by the governor in October, and specifically how it will affect our future council meetings. So we are looking for direction and feedback from the council today so that we can come back to you and start implementing some of these requirements. So specifically, Senate Bill 707 made significant changes to the Brown Act. It mandates, it made a lot of changes. I'm not going to summarize all of those changes for you today. Today, I'm focusing on some of the requirements that will force some operational changes to how we conduct our city council meetings. Now, I am specifically talking about city council only. At this time, these changes do not apply to other council committees, civil service boards, your planning commission, et cetera, although I think we can expect that with time, those changes are probably also going to apply to all legislative bodies equally. Now, there were some changes that already took effect in January. I would consider those a little bit more minor, but you've already seen some of those happen. So, for example, you may recall that we have to make oral reports before taking action on certain salary schedules and compensation, and that was just on your agenda, I believe, last month. You also probably all got a big text copy of the entirety of the Brown Act in your inbox. That was another requirement that took place January 1. But what I'm really focused on today are some of the more significant changes to the Brown Act that take effect July 1. And so, as the city attorney said, we're really focused on getting some feedback because it does require a change to how we currently handle council meetings. And so we need to implement those changes and be in compliance by July 1 to be in compliance with the Brown Act. Now, specifically, I'm talking about public participation requirements. So on or before July 1, we must incorporate remote public participation into each public comment period at City Council meetings. What does remote participation mean? So instead of being here in person to provide your public statements or participating in public hearings, you have to be provided an opportunity at minimum for a two-way telephonic or audio option to participate. And so that means that members of the public can both hear the council meeting but also participate and give statements in real time. Now, remote participants must be given the same time allotment for those public statements as those attending in person. And as I've already said, that does require an operational change. We do not currently have chambers outfitted for that. We don't have the technology. We don't currently allow remote participation in our council meetings. And so that's what we're faced with incorporating into our current council city practice. Now, SB 707 also requires that the council adopt a policy on or before July 1, and that the policy has to address procedures for how you will handle potential interruption or disruption of that telephonic or internet service during a meeting. Why is that? Well, because now the public has a right to participate via two-way audio option, and so if there's a disruption to service, then you have a potential Brown Act violation issue. And so as a result of that, you are now also required to adopt a policy that addresses that potential disruption. Now, notably, it requires that the council has to recess for at least 1 hour or until service is restored. So, for example, let's say we are trying to queue up members of the public that are on the phone that would like to provide public statement, and we can't get the audio to play back. If we fix it right there in real time, you're good to go. We can keep on with the meeting. But if we aren't able to fix the issue, you are required now by the Brown Act to take a recess until service is restored. Now, after 1 hour, if the service is still not working, you are allowed to come back and reconvene the meeting. But to do so, you will have to make findings by roll call vote that you made good faith efforts to comply with the policy that you adopted. Now, I'm not going to go further into that policy. That's not what I'm bringing before you right now. I'm previewing that for you just so you can have some context for potential lengthening of your city council meetings moving forward. So what are your main considerations for today's discussion? Well, first and foremost, we need to talk about how we're going to incorporate remote public participation. I'm going to walk you through some steps for how I think that can most efficiently be incorporated. With that, you need to think about how to account for possible delays or disruptions. And in light of that, consider adjustments to our current agenda order and timing, both to keep things efficient without major changes, but also give you some flexibility as we try to work through the kinks of having remote participation. Now, your current council policy was adopted by resolution. The current resolution that's in effect is resolution number 206-2021. It was adopted by the council in 2021. It was amended most recently in 2023. And that policy, it sets everything about the way we currently conduct council meetings. It sets the start time of your meetings, it sets your public comment periods, and your time limits. And of course, this is not news to you, but also to help educate the public. In that policy, it sets forth, for example, that you have regular meetings at both 3:30 and 5:15. Obviously, you're well aware of that. Our 3:30 meetings are generally reserved for closed session and occasionally reports like this one. Then your regular 5:15 meetings include all other business. Public statements right now are subject to a 2-minute time limit per speaker, 20 minutes for each of the following categories: agenda items, non-agenda items, reports, deferred business, new business. So we need to think about how we're going to incorporate additional public comment into those times. And your public hearings, as you know, are also subject to a little bit different instruction to the public. They're currently subject to 15 minutes per side and 5 minutes for rebuttal time. So in talking with staff about ways that we can incorporate some new technology and remote participation. We wanted to also think through what we do if there's some hiccups along the way and keep things sort of efficient and fast moving. And so what I am going to propose for the council, I'm going to walk you through some steps, some steps for decision making for you today to give me some direction and feedback. So step one is considering shifting some of your routine business items that are currently heard at 5:15 up to the 3:30 meeting agenda. I'll talk about that a little bit next. Step two, adjust how public statements are received in light of how we shift the agenda. And then step three, where I really need some input, is on whether or not there's a desire to adjust your total time limits to account for incorporating that remote participation. So step one, adjusting 3:30, some of the 5:15 meeting items up to 3:30. What do I mean by that? Well, some of your routine and quicker items include making appointments and your consent calendar. There's typically not much public statements for those items. Those are considered routine business items. And so the idea would be to move those from the 5:15 agenda up to your 3:30 agenda to get through them quickly. It would also leave more time for your longer and more controversial items to be heard at 5:15. My other thought with this proposal is that in the event, granted it might not happen often, hopefully it doesn't, but in the event of service disruptions that were hindering your ability to hear these items at 3:30, you could consider just adjourning the meeting and adding those to your 5:15 meeting, and hopefully that would give you sufficient time to fix the issue and then hear all your business at 5:15. So if we did that, this is what your proposed 5:15 agenda would look like. So you'll notice that by moving your appointments and your consent calendar up to 3:30, when you get to 5:15, you're basically going to jump straight into your public hearings if you have public hearings. The reason public statements are highlighted after public hearings is because, if you recall, public hearings have their own public comment rules and instruction. And so we would be able to have those public hearings heard quickly and right away. And if you didn't have public hearings, then you would jump straight to your public statements. Likewise, if you had public hearings and you concluded your public hearings, but you didn't have deferred business or new business on that item, then you would effectively only hear your non-agenda item public statements, and then again, you would be done. So it's a way to kind of have some efficiency and flexibility with your 5:15 meetings, still having those big public hearing moments, be the showcase. So assuming, just work with me, assuming we get past step one and we were to have your revised agendas the way that I've laid out for you, then the next thing we need to consider is how we're going to hear your agenda item public statements now that we know we have to incorporate remote participation. And so again, your proposed 3:30 agenda would look like this. You would have your roll call, you'd launch into your public statements, you'd hear non-agenda item public statements, just the same we already do, and then you'd go into your agenda item public statements, just the same as we currently do, but all your agenda items would be heard at one time. The thought behind this is that for city clerk's office, when they are queuing people that are both in person for public statements as well as on the phone, it facilitates a little bit easier to incorporate hearing all agenda item public statements at one time. So you would hear your agenda item public statements for appointments, consent calendar, reports, and closed session up there at the beginning of the meeting. Again, just repeating it so visually you can see what that would look like. We would do the same thing at 5:15. So again, you would jump straight to your public hearings. You'd have instruction for members who are here to participate in the public hearings. You'd get to your public statements. You'd have your non-agenda item, and then you'd hear all agenda item public statements at one time as displayed there for you. So that brings me to step three. So we're kind of layering on some of these changes to follow along. Step three has to do with the real detail of, do we want to make any adjustments to the total time limits in light of having remote participation? So I've laid out two options for you under step three. Option A is we make no adjustment to total time limits, but You would need to divide them equally between people who are here in person to provide those statements and those who are participating remotely by phone. And so what would that look like? Well, for your regular non-agenda item and agenda item public statements, you would still have your 2 minutes per speaker, 20 minutes total, but that would go 10 minutes reserved for those participating remotely, 10 minutes for those who are here in person. If you did the same thing for your public hearings, again, you would have 15 minutes per side for the argument, but you would need to split that in half to provide the same time allotment for both in-person and remote. That gives you 7.5 minutes total for remote participants, 7.5 minutes total for in-person participants, and again, you would split the rebuttal into 2.5 and 2.5, and then again, you would do that for the other side as well. So because the 7.5 and 2.5 minutes is a little bit awkward and might be too short, you can also consider increasing total time limits. And again, you would still divide it equally between your remote participants and your in-person participants. And so here are some examples. And again, you can provide some feedback, you can pick something different. But if you were to increase regular public statements to 30 minutes, for example, instead of 20 minutes, that would give you 15 in-person, 15 remote. Maybe you don't want to touch public statements, but you're concerned about the public hearings. We could also adjust only the public hearings. What could that look like? Well, we could increase it to 30 minutes total per side. That would give you 15 and 15, 5 and 5. So it's an increase in the total amount of time, not for individual speakers. So I've thrown a lot at you, but just to summarize it, working through the steps. So if council is agreeable or not agreeable, I need to know so I can come back to you and show you a policy that reflects what you want. But if there's an agreement to shift some of those agenda items up to 3:30, that's step 1. And then step 2, we would have all agenda item public statements heard at one time. And then step 3 is, do we want to make any adjustment to the time limits? Those are really the 3 steps that I'm looking for some feedback or concurrence or disagreement. And if you want to change the total time limits, of course, I need to know how much. Now, before we, I'll put that slide back up for you, but just to preview sort of what our next steps will be after today's discussion. So based on today's feedback, I will return to you with amended council policy at the next regular meeting. I would shoot for, which is March 11th, on the 5:15 agenda, and that would reflect the changes to the potential agenda order and public comment time. What I would propose is that we have that changed agenda and public comment policy take effect by April 1. The first regular meeting in April is actually April 8th, but we could say that it's effective in April, with the caveat that the remote participation component shall become effective on or before July 1, so that City Clerk's office can make sure that they get the technology up and running and on board, and hopefully we could try to preview that and practice it perhaps in May and June before it's actually a Brown Act requirement in July 1, and we can work out some kinks if there are any. Then again, I would also return to you at a future council meeting prior to July 1 for that council policy on procedures you want to follow in the event of disruption. But I didn't want to bring that to you all at the same time because I think we need to figure out exactly what changes we want to make first. So again, I'm going to put this slide back up there. These are the steps, the 3 sort of action items that I'm looking for council feedback and direction. But I know that we need to open it up for public comment before we launch into discussion. So,
thank you, Ms. Zambrano. You presented this so clearly. The slides, just the layering. Thank you so much. We'll go to the public now for comment. Madam City Clerk.
The first speaker is Michael Turnipseed.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Madam Mayor, council members, I'm Michael Turnipseed. I represent the Kern County Taxpayers Association. This is a perfect example when you want public to make educated comment, because when I looked at your agenda and the administrative letter, it was like 4 sentences. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. This became the discussion and not what the agenda actually talked about. But I've participated in these with the CPUC. They do this a lot, but generally they're single topic. So just for your consideration, if you had multiple items, you need to think about having, well, where do you want to go? Number 1, number 2, number 3, and have a separate line, because at the CPUC, if you know it's going to be a big issue and you know there's going to be 100 people, 150 people on the line, you call an hour early on your phone and just let the phone stay open to guarantee your spot, because it's first come, first serve. I don't know what your rules are going to be and how you're going to control that, but that's something too. But they've been doing it for years. Their technology is not, I would say, the best anymore. It's probably better. But you have a Zoom going on and you have a phone line going on, just like you can do in Zoom. You can talk on your phone. But anyway, those are all considerations. But the most important thing to all this is when you start working with your agendas is that people have what's going to be the real presentation, what's the real issue. Because by reading the agenda today, well, actually I watched it yesterday, you didn't know that we're going to be talking about this and phones and how it was going to be, whether or a general how we're going to do this. But we have no opposition to public comment by Zoom or by phone. It's once you get used to it, it's okay. But the idea is you have to have the information. If you have a call at 3 o'clock and you don't get to see the real information you talked about, just going by the agenda, you were going to talk about everything. And here you picked one part of the issue. And if I had time to think about it for a few minutes, I probably would have come up with a whole different presentation. So one of my recommendations would be to you, when you have your posting on Thursday or Friday, whenever you post for this meeting, it can't just be an administrative report that's 1 page and 3 paragraphs. It needs to have the details so people are going to know what's actually going to be discussed at the meeting. And I've mentioned this many times before. You don't know what happens at the meeting until you see the PowerPoint. So
Thank you, Mr.
I hope you take that into your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed. And so now we'll go to council. Here's a question. If we had the people who are remote go first, and then those present, and if there weren't people for remote, could somebody, just to use that time, walk into the hallway and then just call in?
I suppose it's possible. I think there's certainly opportunity for members of the public to utilize all the public comment periods available.
Okay. Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
For step 3, I was thinking more along, instead of cutting it in half, doing 7.5, 7.5, I was thinking 10 and 10 to even it out, not necessarily 15 and 15. That was my only suggestion and recommendation.
And now, Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Brano, for the presentation. I had a question about if we move the consent calendar items to the 3:30 meeting, and if a council member pulls an item or a member of the public pulls an item from consent, will we discuss it during that meeting, or will it be then pushed to the 5:15 meeting?
That's a good question. The way that current practice is, if you pull something, it's heard separately after consent calendar. We could certainly follow that same procedure. If you felt differently and wanted to continue it to 5:15, I would envision that being part of the policy so that we would follow that procedure.
if I could just echo a further response to that, I agree with Ms. Zambrano. I would remember the council is the only body that pulls things from the consent calendar, not a member of the public. I will freely admit that when members of the public are here on the consent calendar and they ask your council to pull something, most of the time our council is agreeable to that. I think you need to be careful, though, if we shift from when I pull something off 3:30 and then put it on the 5:30, just because then when I have the 5:30 agenda, I've got to somehow be able to indicate to the public, right, that I'm hearing items that have been pulled off of the 3:30 agenda in order to avoid a violation of the Brown Act on my 5:15 agenda. So I would, again, I agree with Ashley that if we're going to keep the consent calendar at 3:30, we need to keep that, and if something is pulled, we need to hear it at 3:30. What I would say to you, though, is, and I've talked with Christian about this, I think that this is really going to require a little bit more coordination, cooperation in prepping this agenda, and not overloading it or underloading it. And maybe more strategy in what goes on an agenda. Maybe we need to meet, again, every 2 weeks. And I think the city manager has done a great job this year as to making sure we have 28 meetings a year. We start out small and we see what's happening and what the, what that pace is. So I think a lot of it is going to fall on staff to be strategic on what they put on that consent calendar vis-a-vis what they put on new business at 5:15. So I hope that adds just a little bit more context to Councilmember Coleman to what Ashley and I had been thinking about.
Anything further, Councilmember?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm a little concerned about pushing the public hearings, public statements so late in the agenda. We get it out of the way here now. We get it out of the way first, and then we go about our. So now you're going to have everybody wait with their public statements until we're well into the agenda after public hearing items. So I'm just concerned about that.
And if I may, that's a fair point, and we can certainly adjust that. That's part of why we are having the discussion with the council right now. Some of the thinking behind that, though, is that the only agenda items that would be applicable for agenda item public statements would be things that are happening after the public hearing anyway. So it would, you would have your public hearings, and then you would hear your public statements before your agenda items. Let me see. No, that's okay. Let me, it's a little bit easier.
Can you go back to that? Because
Yes.
That's not the way I understood it.
So this would be that proposed 515 agenda. And so you have your roll call and your invocation, your Pledge of Allegiance, your presentations. None of that is has public statements currently anyway. You'd have your public hearings, if there are public hearings. And then you'd have your public statements. When it comes to agenda items, the only agenda items that you would have are deferred business and new business at the end of the meeting. So you'd be hearing your public statements at that time, just before those items are heard.
Yeah, after all the public hearings and all the other rest of the business, we have very little deferred business and new business on our 5:15 agenda. So you could have people waiting here until 7 o'clock for public statements.
But remember, those public statements are on non-agenda items. And what I'm suggesting to you is you may see with this process that your new business has more new business on it. Instead of the consent calendar being overloaded, some of the consent calendar is now going to go under new business. Your concern is valid, but when you sit back and think about it, right, the Brown Act only requires you to take public statements on items that you're going to vote on. You're not voting, when you're voting on the consent calendar public hearings and the public hearings, they have their own statement allocation already in and of themselves. So I think what's really hitting you is, well, the people that are here that want to talk to you about something that's not on the agenda, they either need to come at 3:30 or you're right, they're going to have to wait until later on at the 5:15 meeting. That is correct. And as a general rule, we can go back and we can show you that your non-agenda public speakers, you really generally don't have a lot of them.
Yeah, but, for example, and I don't want to call a BPOA, but I will. They showed up here with 40 or 50 of them not too long ago to talk about things that weren't on our agenda. And now they would have to sit here for an hour and a half or disrupt the meeting by all 40 of them showing up an hour after the meeting started. And that's not uncommon. I mean, it doesn't happen every meeting, but it happens from time to time during the year when we have things that are going on that a lot of people have some opinion about that may or may not be on our agenda. That was my only point to that. My last point is I'm wondering if that we shouldn't start the 3:30 meeting at 3 o'clock and give us a little bit extra time, because I feel like we're often dealing with closed session items, in that meeting, and we're pressed for time most of the time with our closed session items.
Councilmember Coleman, no objection there. I absolutely think that is a very good point.
Councilmember, anything else? Thank you,
No, Mayor, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't like moving stuff, the consent agenda, to the 3:30, because if somebody wants to pull something off, as you say, the public shows up and wants to pull something off, council member agrees to pull it off, but I believe it's more difficult for the public to show up at 3:30 than what it is after 5. In general, that's why you wait till after 5, because people work. And so I guess I would lean towards, the appointments, yeah, fine. There's never a problem there to move those to 3:30. But basically leave everything else the way it is. And if our meeting ends up going longer than, seems to me most of the time, meetings are done at 7:30, maybe we go to, 8:30, 9 o'clock. If it goes, I understand you don't want 10, 11 o'clock, people aren't thinking as well, but in general, I think it's better to leave it the way it is. Thank you.
Going back to your point of perhaps readjusting what goes on consent and other places, if it's going to be something that likely would generate public comment, then could that, with city manager, be taken off and put on the other part of the agenda? Would that make more sense? So in consent, you're really considering those items that truly are non-controversial, just routine types of things. Would that make a difference than what Councilmember Smith's talking about?
Mayor, yes. I mean, we can all think to ourselves, how many times have you seen someone from the public come and ask to pull something off the consent calendar? It's very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare.
Yeah.
Now, I fully understand what Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Coleman are getting at, but I would say, again, most of that then falls on the city manager's office to say, is this really a consent calendar item, or is this a new business item or a deferred item? And again, whatever we do here, I think Ashley said it right. These are baby steps, right? We want to do something, and if it works, great. And if it needs to be tweaked, then we'll come back and we'll alter the resolution again. So, but it's going to require a little bit of adjustment from all staff, public, mayor, and the council. But yes, I would envision that the new business item, number 9, is going to increase.
And that was, I guess my point is if you're going to try and have everything on the consent agenda at the 3:30 that is not controversial, then it's really not going to take any time.
Yeah.
So if it takes 3 minutes at 5:15, so what? What are you really saving? So again, I think leave it the way it is. Thank you.
I would, if I could, Councilmember Smith, what you may see there is we were trying to eliminate the speaker that gets up and speaks twice. They would speak because they're pulling an agenda item under consent, and then they're speaking again because they're going to say that they have a non-agenda item that is somehow related to it. So the way that it is being proposed right now would basically eliminate that.
Anything else, Councilmember
I
Smith?
get it. I mean, certain people play games, but in general, I think we're good the way we are.
Vice Mayor.
Can I see the slide again that had the step
Yes.
1, 2, 3? And then the next slide. Could you go to the next one? Or there was one that kind of
4.
Yeah, maybe it was like a gradual adding in of. Maybe is it the next slide? Sorry. Okay.
Earlier, the prior slides?
I don't know which order it was.
might
What's
be
the
the
slide
prior
right before
slides.
this?
Here, let me.
Okay. So we have to implement something from within each step, or are you saying these are our options? Like step 1, 2, 3, is it like something from each step needs to be added, or was it like an option?
Council has discretion within each step. I
Okay.
used it as steps so that if you were sort of in agreement and I wasn't hearing any objection, then that would be what I proposed. But you can absolutely, if you don't want to shift anything to 3:30, absolutely, you can give me that direction right now. Same with step 2. If you don't want to have all agenda item statements heard at the same time, you can say no to that. We can talk about other ways to modify it, and same with step 3. So they are sort of options in a sense. By all means, council can say yay or nay to each of those.
Okay. I feel that moving appointments to 3:30 makes sense as well, and keeping the 5:15 meeting as accessible to the public as possible. So if that means, I agree with Jenny that it probably means some things are getting moved into categories of being a report or new business, which maybe we don't see something as often there, but will that then also break up public statements between like consent calendar public statements, appointments public statements, new business public statements? Is that also with like, when you mean times, like the increase in total time limits or the shift in time limits, is that what is also meant by that?
Yeah, so Ashley, if pull up for the vice mayor, then what the 3:30 would look like. So if we took consent calendar off, right? So
Yes.
just imagine that one off. So
Yep,
that's
so then
gonna
we would go to 5:15, and I believe you're...
play it, push it back one more time, will you? So you would still have public statements right where Ashley has put them, right? And it's going to be on non-agenda items, and then agenda public statements, you would only be there to speak on reports and closed sessions. Okay? Now go to the next slide, please. Right? And now Ashley's going to have to plug in consent calendar, and she would plug in consent calendar probably, I'm guessing, as the new number 5, right? Actually, no, it would have, public statements would go up to number 5.
Yes, so there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could either plug in your consent calendar after your public statements number 7. It'd be your new number 8. But hearing Councilmember Coman, who doesn't like that shift, you could also put your consent calendar where we currently have it, which is at the beginning of the meeting. That would be your new number 5. But before you could act on that, we'd have to move up public statements as well. So we would probably do presentations, public statements, consent calendar, public hearings, deferred business, new business, et cetera. More similar to how our current 5:15 agenda is.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Is there any discussion in terms of time? I heard Councilmember Bashir Tash indicate that he favors on the hearings 10 minutes and 10 minutes. I didn't hear anyone else with regard to time periods.
Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I would just agree with Councilmember Bashir Tash on that
10 and
statement.
10? Okay.
Yeah.
And how about on the public statements as a whole? Did we want to just split it in half, or did you want to double it? I'm hearing shaking of the head, split it in half, so 10 minutes remote, 10 minutes in person?
I think so. I guess I had a question on that is,
Yeah.
you don't have anybody call in, or you only have 5 minutes of people calling in. The people here still are
Right.
limited to 10?
You know, I would do that just because I think we're new at this. And if you wanted to change it, you can always change it. But at least starting out, this is different for staff. I would maintain the 10 and 10. And if you don't have 10 minutes of remote, then you don't have 10 minutes of remote. Rah, rah. You just go to the next one.
And the only thing I would add to that is that, of course, the mayor still has discretion. So if you had no one on the phone and you go to your in-person and you have more than 5 people who want to speak, but you know that you have this extra time, the mayor could always extend the time and allow the additional speakers.
Yeah.
And the mayor already has that discretion currently, and we would obviously still utilize that.
Totally agree, completely agree with Ashley. I think part of our reason for not being definitive with you is we don't know the technology that the city clerk's office is going to ultimately have. So if you opened it up for a 10-minute remote and nobody was on the line, are we going to allow people, once she says, okay, remote time is over, in-person time now starts, and somebody comes in and they're a little late, what do we do? So a lot of this we're going to learn, what does the technology allow the city clerk to do? But again, the mayor has the ultimate discretion as the chair.
Yeah, I would just, one more time, say, as much as possible, leave it the way it is and kind of see how it goes. And if we need to make changes, we can make changes, and the mayor has discretion. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm fine with Councilmember Bashir Tash's recommendation that we do 5 and 5. That makes sense. But, is that right? 10 and 10? Yeah, I'm sorry. I got you down to 5. I almost had you down to 5. Yeah. But I don't think we need to change the overall amount of time. And I also agree with Councilmember Smith in that I think we just leave it the way it is and just, not move the consent calendar. And I don't think it changes anything significantly. So,
just to be clear, we're not going to change the order, but you're changing when the public statements are going to be presented. So we're clear with that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I don't know how that differs from now. It's just going to be other speakers. So I think we're making more work for ourselves by doing all this. So it's just my thoughts. So
You can thank the governor for that.
I will. Thanks.
So I'm just
Do you
going to
have need
recap.
for further
Thank you, Mayor.
clarification?
If there's no other comments from the colleagues, the
Just
council?
one now. Councilmember Bashir Tash.
This is just informative. You're not looking for a motion or anything like that, right?
No, we talked about that. I think we're okay. Because what Ashley's going to do is we are going to come back to you, as she said, on next steps. We're going to come back to you the next meeting in March, and she's going to have a resolution that's going to change that council policy again. It's going to be paren 2. And we're going to lay out everything that we heard here today. And I'm going to recap, and Ashley can correct me if I'm wrong.
And
Go ahead.
before you recap, one additional point of clarification, if we increase the public hearing time to 10 and 10, so it's a little bit cleaner, I'm assuming we would do the same for rebuttal. So instead of that 2.5, it'd be 5 and 5?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're not making a motion, but I will say that I am in favor of steps 1, 2, and 3, the way that you had presented it to us. And then I think that you did a decent job of making sure that we break it up so that one isn't packed more than the other. And I think that'll make more sense as we get into it. And I hope that we will give what you presented a try. And then if we need to go back and adjust to be more similar to the way we are, we do that. But if we're not, voting or anything, that's just my half a cent.
Well, again, I just want to clarify. I hear you. I haven't heard from Councilmember Weir, but I'm hearing 3 of your other colleagues, Councilmembers Coleman, Smith, and Kaur, say that they do not like the way, not that they don't like, but they would prefer that the items stay the way they are. And so that's the way we're going to bring the resolution back, and that's the vote. And my thought is that if everything stays the same, you're probably going to be the no vote on March 5th. Want to talk?
Councilmember Weir?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I like the proposal by Councilmember Bashir. I would think it would benefit us if we went to 3 o'clock instead of 3:30. I think that's an easy thing for people to do. And then I think we should keep it as close as we can to what we're used to and what our colleagues and constituents are used to. So it's not so cumbersome, and it may be a little cumbersome as we initiate it, but it's nice if we walk in and we have an idea of what is going to go on and what we need to do. And so those are my comments.
Want to recap?
I do. And Ashley, if you want to just pull those up and maybe you can just go ahead and do the recap. I can say what I heard and then you can agree or disagree.
Okay.
So on the 3:30 agenda, if you could just flip to that real quick.
Oh, yeah, that's where I was.
So on the 3:30 agenda, what I think I generally heard is we want to keep that. However, we are going to remove item number 4, consent calendar. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 will be reports, and 5 will be closed session. Do you understand? Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And then at 5:15, we will have roll call, invocation, pledge of allegiance, presentations. We will then move public statements up to non-agenda item public statements and agenda item public statements, which will not include the consent calendar public hearings and the public hearings. Then we will have consent calendar public hearings, deferred business, new business, council and mayor statements. I'm sorry, and we'll add consent calendar.
Yes.
Right, we'll add consent calendar right under public statements.
Correct.
And in terms of time, we'll keep the typical time for public statements, non-agenda and agenda, and cut it in half. And for hearings, we're going to go 10 in favor and 10.
No, we'll increase it from 15 minutes per side to 20 minutes per side so that you have 10 in person, 10 remote. And then do the same thing for rebuttal. It'll be 5 and 5.
And then how about start time? You had proposed 3 o'clock.
I like the 3 o'clock idea, but I would just tell you, I think the 3 o'clock idea made more sense when we had the consent calendar on there. And now that the consent calendar has been pulled, I think I hear you as a consensus basically saying that you want to keep things as much as normal, as typical as possible. So I would say there wouldn't be a need to go to 3 o'clock.
Councilmember Bashir-Tosh?
I would concede to 3 o'clock if it meant keeping the consent calendar on that, just for the record.
She doesn't need a motion. Do you have enough of guidance, or do you want any more?
No,
feedback?
I have what I need. And just to recap from my perspective, this will be coming back to you on March 11th. It will take the form of an amended resolution where the council policy will show both the red line and a clean version, hopefully reflecting the consensus that I heard today. And then from there, we would look to have those changes take place by April 1. And the remote participation component we would implement when we have it up and running, but obviously prior to July 1. What we're hoping for is that we can do some test runs with it, incorporate it into our public meetings for the May and June meetings so that if there's any kinks, we can fix them before July 1.
I would add that I think we'll probably put it under deferred business in order to give the public a little bit more opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adjourn to closed session.
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
May I please read the closed session?
Yes, please.
Closed session item 4A, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation, one matter.
Right. Adjourn to closed session. Reconvening the 3:30 City Council meeting. Madam City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We only had one item on closed session tonight, item 4A, and there is no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, the 3:30 meeting stands adjourned at 5:19. Thank you all for your patience. Sorry we ran a little late. We're going to need a little break as technology changes out a couple of things, and then we'll start as soon as we can.
Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of February 25th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Core.
Here.
Councilmember Arias.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Coman.
Here.
And Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Here.
Thank you, and welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us this evening. See, we have some students from CSUB, from Professor Solis's class. Can you give me a wave? Welcome. Thank you for being here. And from Professor Holmes' class at Bakersfield College. All right. Well, thank you for engaging in this process tonight. We have the pleasure tonight of having Father Matthew Spencer of Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe, co-patroness of the unborn, to offer the invocation. Father, thank you so much for your support of families, particularly those who are going through the challenges of losing a child, and just that beautiful shrine that you have out there. Thank you for your support of life. We'd really appreciate that. Following the invocation, Imandeep Matharu, who's a sophomore at Stockdale High, he'll lead us in the pledge. He's Councilmember Arias, appointee to the Ward 1 Commission, Youth Commission. He's a treasurer for sophomore ASB with a 4.0 GPA, member of the Forensics Club, Speech and Debate, member of the Model UN Club. He's a speaker at the TEDx Stockdale, and as a freshman, he presented on the topic of the death of languages. He enjoys biking and watching movies and series in his free time. I just don't know when you're going to have that free time with all the other things that you do in your 4.0, but we thank both of you for being here. Would you please stand?
Mayor Go and council members, city staff, it's my pleasure to represent the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Thanks for this opportunity. Gracious God, we gather together as servants of this community, entrusted with the welfare of our neighbors. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us, for the gift of life you have given to each of us, for our friends and family, and for the providential care you extend to us every day. And we thank you too for the opportunity to gather together this evening and to work to build up our community and strengthen the bonds of unity and peace among us. Grant wisdom to all in this room. May the deliberations here be guided not by what is easy or expedient, but by what is just and true. May the decisions made today reflect a genuine care for all in our community, including the vulnerable, the forgotten, the downtrodden, and those whose voices don't reach these chambers. Strengthen our commitment to honest service and grant us perseverance in all our efforts. And all of this we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
All right. Everybody's already standing, so. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Imandeep. And would you like to introduce your family?
Yes, this is my father right here and my mother right here. I'm sitting down.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we thank you for his service. Father, thank you very much. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos for safety reasons and as a courtesy to others. No signs are allowed in the council chamber or in the lobby. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts this meeting may result in expulsion and/or the chambers being cleared. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, shouting, hate speech, interrupting staff or presenters during the meeting, speaking out of turn, and outbursts from the audience. In keeping with Council's resolution, public statements are received at different times. Depending on the item, I will call on the city clerk for public statements. If you wish to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and place it in the tray next to the speaker's podium. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on today's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda public statements. If you're here to speak on an item not listed on the meeting agenda, you'll be called first to speak. Statements are given a 2-minute time limit per speaker, 20 minutes total for all non-agenda item public statements. If you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda, I'll call for you at the appropriate time. If public statements become disruptive and I have to clear the chambers to regain order of the meeting, you'll be called in one at a time to provide your public statement when your item is called. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda? Thanks.
Mayor Go, we have received 4 speaker cards regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Maria J. Wright.
And for all our public speakers, if you would adjust the microphone to your level, that will help us. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Mariah J. Wright. I want to thank you for all the work you're all doing behind the scenes to keep our city moving. Oh.
Just get a little closer to the mic.
Is this better? Okay. I wanted to thank you for the work you've been doing behind the scenes to keep our city moving. I wanted to briefly highlight a theme that connects to several items on today's agenda. The balance between responding to challenges and preventing them. Not just how we respond to challenges, but how we prevent them before they grow. Right now, many of our systems are designed to react once something has already become urgent, visible, or costly. Prevention often looks quieter, smaller, earlier investments that help stabilize situations before they escalate. We already see this in our community. Efforts like the Bakersfield Burrito Project are often reactive, meeting immediate needs, but they also show how consistent community-based support can stabilize situations early and reduce the need for more costly interventions later. The opportunity here isn't to replace what's already working, but to support it, strengthen it, and learn from it. Because prevention isn't about doing more, it's about doing things earlier and more intentionally. Thank you again for your time and for your work to continue for Bakersfield.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Next speaker, please.
Mary Helen Barrow, followed by Terry Maxwell.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Go and all the members of the council. I'm here because I was almost bitten, and one of my neighbor's children was almost bitten by an aggressive feral cat. We've got loose feral cats all over this town. They need to be picked up. They're getting dangerous. There are too many of them, and they're unsafe in residential neighborhoods. We're a block from Longfellow School, and mothers walk their children to school, the little ones, because they can't walk by themselves. These cats are starting to attack them as they walk by the property on the way to school. Please do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrow. I'm sorry that you were almost bitten. Next speaker, please.
Terry Maxwell, followed by James Calderon.
Good evening, council members. My name is Terry Maxwell. I'm here to talk about H Street and the so-called improvements. I want to read, first of all, H Street is unique. You can't look at any other street in Bakersfield and say, oh, it's just the same thing. We can do whatever we want. I want to read for you in their submission to get the money to do this project. They said, livability benefit number 2. The project will work to reduce congestion on existing streets by reducing the vehicular trips in the project corridor as well as adjacent streets. You know, 14,000 cars go down H Street every day. Just by making it 2 lanes in both directions instead of 4 lanes, 1 lane in each direction instead of 2 lanes, where's the extra cars going to go? How did this address that? It didn't address it at all. Because I can guarantee you make it a 1 lane, you got a lot of people who are not going to use it. We only have Oak Street and Chester that can get us on the other side to California Avenue and then all the way to Brundage. L Street won't do it, and we've already got, we lovingly call Oak Street the parking lot because that's what it usually is. And you're gonna take all that traffic and you can put it on Chester? Isn't Chester kind of congested also? This is not a well thought out plan at all. You didn't look at any other way of solving the problem. You have 6 out of 7 intersections that do not have left-hand turn lanes. Did you think maybe if you took out parking on one side of the street, you could widen the lanes? Because that's part of the problem, is those lanes they're as narrow as they can possibly be and still be under the federal laws. If you take out one aisle of your parking, you can widen the lanes. You can then also, at the intersections, eliminate parking on either side, and you could actually have left-hand turn lanes. When you look at the list of all the accidents that have been on there, they're all related to the width and the fact that people come up and they want to make a left-hand turn. They got all these cars behind them, and when they make that turn, because they got all those cars, they very often get broadsided. This is go and read what they submitted to get this money, and you'll almost start laughing. Because it's ridiculous what they said. And I would urge you to put off this project. I know it's supposed to start, I think, in April. I would put this off. And actually, the missing person here,
your time's up. Can
Mr. Gonzalez, actually stated that he felt that the business owners should definitely be informed and be brought into this.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Next speaker, please.
James Calderon, followed by Seth Hewitt.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is James Calderon, and I'd like to first give all honor and glory to my higher power for being able to be here and speak with you guys today. And this is about the homeless situation. And I guess 19 months ago, I was homeless, and I guess what you would call a career criminal. But 18 months ago, I gave my life to God, and I started a new way of life, and I started with some classes at La Vida Nueva, and I'd say about 8 months into my walk, I was blessed with a car from someone from my church, and I was still not able to find any work. I guess it might have been due to 18 years of no work history, or maybe it's because I was a violent felon, or I am a violent felon, and it wasn't looking too good. And then after about 15 months, about 12 months, I was able to get a job, and then I got another job, and so now I have 2 jobs. And right before Christmas, a few months ago, I was able to get my first house, and I have my family back, and I mean, I'm able to say that I'm living a life now that I'm not seeing on TV or I'm reading in a book, you know what I mean? And That's about it. And I just want to thank La Vida Nueva and my higher power.
Congratulations on your progress.
All right, thank you.
Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Seth Hewitt. Mayor Go, I did also want to announce that a staff memorandum has been provided regarding this item, transmitting additional correspondence received.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for your time today. I would like to start with an apology. In January, I came to the council twice talking about a municipal transport authority. That was quite naive because I didn't understand Propositions 13 or Propositions 218, which severely limit Bakersfield and its ability to generate revenues. And so I wanted to kind of come here and, one, ask for your grace, but two, I wanted to bring up what these propositions are to the people of Bakersfield, because I think it's really important, because sometimes residents point their finger directly at the city before understanding the limitations that it's under from the state. So for those of you who don't have your proposition flashcards handy, Proposition 13 protects homeowners from rising property taxes, which is great on the surface, but it also limits how much revenue cities can generate, even as our population grows. Proposition 218, very similarly, it gives taxpayers a voice on new fees, which again sounds great, but it also makes it extremely difficult for cities to then fund infrastructure projects locally. So one caps local funding, the other one locks the toolbox. And so that's why we see deferred maintenance on infrastructure and rate increases like our residents have been talking about with sewer rates. And it also means that cities like Bakersfield are heavily dependent on California and the feds, which, might be part of the design there. So what do we do with the cards that are in front of us? Well, first, we have to keep playing ball. We have to keep chasing after these grants as well as funding programs, any of them that are available. But long-term self-sufficiency for valley cities like ours will require a bolder push for structural reform. Policies designed for coastal markets do not fit the working inland communities like ours. So Bakersfield, I believe, should stand with other Central Valley jurisdictions, along with regional leadership like Senator Grove or Congressman Fong, to advocate for state constitutional reforms. I know this 26-year-old, so naive coming up here with these ambitious ideas, but I believe that if we want a more self-reliant future for cities like ours, we have to start raising these concerns and standing up for our region, especially as we might be seeing congressional changes, governor changes here soon for our state. So I wanted to thank you again for operating under the limitations you have, and we'll be more gracious, I think, as residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Madam Clerk, anyone else?
Mayor Go, that was our final non-agenda item public statement.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public statements listed on the agenda. If you're here to speak on appointments item 6A or items listed under consent calendar item 7, your time to speak is now. Again, each speaker is given a 2-minute time limit. Each agenda item is limited to 20 minutes total. The consent calendar as a whole constitutes one agenda item. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding appointments item 6A or items listed under consent calendar item 7?
Mayor Go, we've received 9 speaker cards regarding agenda item public statements. The first public speaker is Dave Domachowski regarding item 6A.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Go and council members. Dave Domachowski, representing the Home Builders Association of Kern County. I think, as we all know, under California's regulatory system, it's never been more difficult, complex, time-consuming, and costly to secure entitlements and permitting in the state of California, including the city of Bakersfield. There's been some very positive organizational changes in the Development Services Department, and I think this would be a good time to take a look and examine the city's policies and procedures for issuing permits and plan approval. So we're in support of the staff recommendation on this item and look forward to working with the committee in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Mary Helen Barrow regarding item 7E7.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you again, Mayor and council members. I'm here because I'm very concerned about the sewer system and the water collection. Currently, we have so many chemicals in our water. I live in East Bakersfield in Lower Alta Vista. We used to be able to drink our tap water. It was delicious. Now we've got so many chemicals in our water. It's terrible. California Water puts in, I found out, 274 or 247 chemicals in our water. Help, please. We've got to do something so we can drink our tap water again, and make sure that they don't overdo it. There's got to be a cleaner way and a safer way to take care of our water. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Barrow. Next speaker, please.
Antje Lauer, regarding item 7F1.
Welcome.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Antje Lauer. I'm a professor at CSUB Biology Department and a member of the Tree Advisory Group for a year. So we all care about the Bakersfield community. Being a member of the Tree Advisory Group for 1 year now, I have observed the efforts to make a real progress towards increasing the tree canopy in our city, but it is very slow. With my students, I have looked at tree canopy coverage and heat disparity data using information from American Trees, an organization that exists since 1875 with many experts in urban forestry. With their tree equity program, they provide data useful for identifying the status quo of tree canopy coverage in all cities across the US. So American Forest data was even used in the public draft of SOAR Bakersfield that you should all know, Sustainable Opportunities for Achieving Resilience, which was, as a draft, released in October 2025. As you know, Bakersfield tree equity score is poor, only 50 to 60 on average out of 100. More trees were removed than were planted over the last years, resulting in decreased canopy coverage, which led to heat disparity in many areas of town, especially in the southeastern part of Bakersfield, where many of our disadvantaged community members live, but also in a few other areas, actually. And the heat disparity means that these areas have 4 to 6 Fahrenheit hotter than the average in the Bakersfield summer, which is excruciating. Planting more trees mindfully, right species in the right place, will help reduce this heat disparity. Therefore, I suggest that a budget for tree planting should be priority over all other efforts proposed by the Recreation and Parks Department, including the proposed tree inventory. So I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Karen Urso.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Go, council members, city staff, and members of the public. I'm Karen Urso, and I'm a community health nurse educator. And we all know the importance of improving our air quality. Trees, by their leaves, filter air quality, and studies have shown how much of the particulate matter leaves can actually trap and keep out of our air. Exposure to this air pollutant contributes, of course, to lung disease and asthma, but also to cardiac disease, to obesity, diabetes, to cancer, to premature birth, dementia, possibly autism, to congenital defects, and these all are present in our community in higher rates than the rest of the state and the rest of our nation. This contributes significantly to our healthcare costs, which continue to rise. Trees also provide shade, and that mitigates heat-related illness as well. So I'd ask you to please plant and maintain trees and make this a budget priority. Thank you.
Thank you. And next speaker, please.
Sharon Brill.
Welcome.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm a little confused. I'm writing as a 24-year voting resident of Ward 5 and a member of the Sierra Club, Kern Cahuilla chapter. And I respectfully request the delay of the approval of the $180,000 contract to inventory 40,000 trees until a strategic plan is in place to guide its use. The Central City and citywide tree plan included in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan was approved by this council on November 20th, 2004. The citywide tree plan was roughly 168 pages with detailed findings on the state of Bakersfield's urban forests. Yet the word inventory appears only 4 times across just 2 pages. What is missing is a clear path with a specific goal, named staff, and a deadline. Appendix H is a specific action plan developed by the community stakeholders that outlines concrete steps to improve Bakersfield's urban forest, including using Fresno's urban forest program as a model. Yet, unlike Fresno, Bakersfield council members are not a part of the committee responsible for developing that plan. Without council involvement, there is no assurance that every ward will receive a fair share of the urban forest improvements our residents deserve. More troubling is the public records request shows that 657 trees were removed between July and September of 2025. Appendix H states clearly that for every tree removed, a tree shall be replaced. Tonight, instead of the funding for that promise, the Congress needs to being asked to spend $180,000 counting the trees that remain. I respectfully ask that the council delay this decision until a clear strategic plan is presented, one that reflects the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the City Tree Plan, and the community input found in Appendix H. Bakersfield residents deserve commitment to both counting trees and planting them. I respectfully submit these comments.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Joanne Hamilton.
Good evening.
Welcome.
I'm a member of the Sierra Club, and I'm not an expert, but the speakers before me and the speakers after me have more to say and more knowledgeable. But we need more trees, and we need them taken care of. And Bakersfield is so hot, and the trees and the shade are so valuable. And they're also good for the nature, for the birds, and all of the other creatures that live in our city. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Next speaker, please.
Rob Parsons.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Rob Parsons. I'm a resident of Bakersfield since 1948 at age 5. I'm a sculptor and retired STEM professor from Bakersfield College, which has been designated as a tree campus by the Arbor Foundation for the last 5 years at least. I'm, as a devout tree hugger, I'm here to speak in support of my fellow Sierra Club members' efforts to increase the tree canopy in Bakersfield. And so I will just wanted to be numbered as one of the supporters, and I will yield the rest of my time to the speakers that will come after me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Eddie Lane.
Welcome.
Welcome. Back again. I'm not sure that the yield process really works here. We are quite clear that item number 7F1 should be held. That's our request. That's the bottom line tonight. We want that held. Our priority is planting trees. Trees have been taken out. We know that from Public Records Act. and we want those trees replaced. Not necessarily in the same place, but we want those trees replaced. So our basic request is that item 7F1 be held. It's be held. I want to add some more, and you're going to get a whole lot of paperwork because we've done a lot of it. Isn't it sad that the tree priorities that were adopted on November 20, 2024, with over 120 signatures, are being ignored? For every tree removed, a tree is to be planted. That's bottom line, and that's not being done. Isn't it sad that, unlike our Fresno model, you who are elected by the people are not involved in these decisions? There's an appointed committee by the Parks and Recreation Director, appointed. We need your direct involvement in these tree issues. And we've already met with several of you about these. Isn't it sad that this $180,000 under discussion doesn't even match what's in the tree plan? The MIG tree plan that was adopted was $120,000 for inventory. So what goes on here? The tree plan that was adopted is $120,000. Now you're trying to allocate $180,000? There's a miss. There's a miss there. And isn't it sad that when we went to downtown Bakersfield a few weeks ago, we invited all of the city staff to come with us. There are 7 members that have been on various meetings. And we went downtown. The Californian was there. Channel 23 was there. But nobody from the city showed up. We need the city to work with us on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Next speaker, please.
Maria Polite.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Maria Polite, and I'm here because I love trees. I grew up in South Florida climbing the wild oak trees in my mother's backyard with my brothers. Everyone who's had that opportunity. I actually had 2 little boys living with me for a long time, for a short time, and they had never climbed a tree. They were 11 and 9 years old. Now, that's not your fault, but they climbed my trees, and they were so happy. It reminded me. So I'm here to give you our main concerns. This has been prepared by some of my friends here about the tree plan. And so I'm not going to go over it because you can read it. And that's why I'd like to submit this. But I had a great idea when I was driving down California Avenue. I taught at Bakersfield High for 40 years. So after you go past Bakersfield High, you begin that long stretch along the railroad. And it's got that green fence. Now, the middle median is really nice. But it occurred to me, if we could plant trees along that railroad, think of how it would help the pollution that comes from the trains. It would be pretty. The people who live in that area would appreciate it. So I'm just here to say, look at California, west of Bakersfield High, down to Oak Street, as a place that maybe we could start the first part of the tree plan. And thank you so much. I'm so blessed to be in this town and in this county where we can come and talk to you and state our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polite. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Gillica.
Welcome.
Thank
Please
you.
introduce
Thank
yourself.
you for having us here. Everyone before me has spoken very eloquently, and I think we have been trying to persuade the city council members, let's say for over a period of 2 years, by coming to the city council, by meeting city council members separately, and trying to persuade the city to move in a greener direction. We really have no vested interest. This is for the vast general public. It's a public good that we are asking for. It's not that we are going to be beneficiaries in any specific way. One could argue, as you see the age group that is here, that is actually requesting something from the city council, the beneficiaries are going to be people who come after us, potentially. We don't have, we are interested in this issue, but it's a more public goods issue. I am also a political scientist, as many of you know. So I'm not going to make a plea for the trees and why they're important. I think everybody here knows that. What I am curious about is that usually when the agenda is not accomplished, an agenda which the City Council unanimously supported and wholeheartedly supported, and that agenda, we're still sitting where we were 2 years ago. Usually when those things happen, there is another group that opposes the agenda. There is a conflict. There's a possible opposition to the agenda. But there seems no opposition. There seems consensus that we all agree that this is important. There's a budget there. We are only asking that the budget be used appropriately so we actually get to move on the agenda. And I find it rather surprising that when there is no clash of interest between what the Sierra Club and people like myself and Dr. Lauer is asking for, there's no group opposing this. And yet nothing seems to be moving forward. We keep trying to work
Ms. Kumari, your time is up, so can you bring your comments to a close? You can go ahead and do another sentence if you'd like.
Thank you. I just want to say, is it possible for the City Council members to perhaps work with the Department of Parks and Rec and maybe the community members so we actually accomplish something, perhaps this year? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any comments further related to this?
Mayor Go, that was our final speaker card.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Appointments, item 6A, creation of the Development Review Streamlining Ad Hoc Committee. Appointment of members by the Vice Mayor and setting the first meeting in March.
Thank you. So, Mr. Clegg, would you like to provide some background before we do that?
Mayor Go, thank you. This was a referral that was made at our last meeting. Staff has prepared an opportunity for council to create this ad hoc committee. We feel confident we understand the scope of the committee and look forward to working with those appointed by council to organize a schedule and a framework to take this topic up over the next year.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Councilmember Arias, would you like to add anything?
Just that I appreciate staff bringing this back, appreciate the Vice Mayor in supporting the creation of the ad hoc, and I would recommend that my colleagues, Councilmember Coleman and Councilmember Bob Smith, given their knowledge base and wisdom in the development process, that they join me in this effort to spearhead this, learn more about the development services process, and figure out where we can make improvements as a city. Thank you.
So it's three people.
Mm-hmm.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Arias.
City Attorney?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, my understanding is that this was an ad hoc committee. So an ad hoc committee is generally 2 individuals from the council. It generally does not follow the Brown Act. It's not required to follow the Brown Act, I should say. It may or may not have staff in attendance, and it is only there for a standing period of time to address a particular issue. So if we're going to go with 3, it really needs to be a standing committee.
Oh, okay.
Your call.
Vice Mayor, if I may, when we were responding to the homelessness issue several years ago, and we had created the ad hoc committee on homelessness, it was I was one of the 3 members who had joined that ad hoc committee, and that had turned into a standing committee once we realized the usefulness and the utility of that committee. Were we in the wrong at that time? Have things changed?
Mayor, Councilmember Arias, no, I don't think you're in the wrong because we converted it eventually to a standing committee. I don't want to die on the vine with this, but generally speaking, a standing committee is something that the entire council approves as a whole. And so this standing committee, if that's what it is, has not been approved by the council as a whole. So when you made the recommendation to appoint an ad hoc, I immediately, in my mind, went to, hey, this is going to be a 2-person committee. We can have a 3-person committee and it can still be an ad hoc, but then that means it will definitely follow the Brown Act.
Okay.
And if I may, Councilmember and Vice Mayor, we're prepared to have staff present and function as a Brown Act committee.
Thank you. I do feel it's important that we have staff there. As we've heard from our development community, this is an urgent priority for us as the council, for city staff as well. And whether it's business development or it's housing, I will particularly point to housing. We need to figure out how we streamline some of our permitting in a conscious way so we can keep housing generally affordable at all levels, market rate, all the way through to affordable, and making sure that the city of Bakersfield continues to be a business-friendly place. So I will go ahead and accept Councilmember Arias' recommendation and appoint Councilmember Larry Coman, Councilmember Bob Smith, and Councilmember Eric Arias to the Ad Hoc Development Review Streamlining Committee. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, Madam City Attorney, are we okay? You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 7A through 7I for approval.
Thank you. And so we've had requests from Councilmember Coleman to pull 7E1, 7F1, and from Councilmember Bashir Tosh, 7F3, and from 3 council members, Councilmember Bashir Tosh, Councilmember Weir, and Councilmember Arias to pull 7I1. Vice Mayor?
Okay. Motion to, let me double check these. Motion to approve consent calendar with the exception of items 7E1, 7F1, 7F3, and 7I3.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent.
Thank you. And Councilmember Coleman, you requested 7E1 be pulled. That's the e-scribe.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. This is directed to staff. This is more funding for our e-scribe service, which, quite frankly, if they had a system in my office, I'd take an axe to it. That thing is a very cumbersome program. Maybe it's because I'm outside the city network, but it just overloads me with wasted emails and schedules that, in order to change a schedule, it takes, 2 cancellations and another approval, and it's very, very confusing. And I don't know why we're continuing to give this company more money every single year. So could somebody please answer that question for me?
Mr. Clegg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll give a start, and if our city clerk wants to add on to that, we can as well. So our eScribe system for the listening public is our agenda management system. It's what helps us produce our city council agendas. I think one of the points of frustration that has been pointed out by Councilmember Coleman is related to as we create a meeting, you receive notifications of those meetings. We have had issues in the past where a meeting might have gotten missed by a council member, so we actually create meeting schedules for you in Outlook as well as eScribe. Not all council members are using Outlook, so unfortunately, sorry, Councilmember Coleman, you are using our Outlook system, and so you get both of those notifications. The way I would describe eScribe, as we look at all of our software acquisitions, We do formal bidding processes. We create requests for proposals. And what I would characterize, when I came to the city 6 years ago, we were using most of the lowest budget tier software that was out there for most of our programs. And often you pay for those lowest quality programs by not having them work quite the way that you would want. Interestingly enough, eScribe is actually more middle of the road there. And when we look at software programs, we're able to identify the full spectrum of services. And there are many programs out there that have all the bells and whistles, but you pay a lot more for those programs. And I would acknowledge that eScribe is not the most proficient agenda management system out there, but it has a high value to the price that we pay for that system. It is a much better system than some of the others that were evaluated, and we actually had interviews where we had demonstrations with the different potential implementing softwares for this agenda management system. And eScribe is what I would say again, it's about middle of the road, and it's a pretty good bang for our buck. What I would say to council is that we regularly evaluate whether or not it's time to change a software entirely, but we try to do that usually more on like a 5-year basis. If we're changing every 12 months or 24 months, it costs a lot of time and change management and learning new systems. And so at this time, we haven't recommended making a change away from eScribe. It's again, I would note it's not perfect, but it does our core functions that we need it to do. And it's been at a value that is much more competitive than some of our other vendors that we evaluated. Ms. Dramakis, would you add anything to that?
I think you got all the points. Thank you.
I just feel like that these companies take advantage of municipalities, that we don't get the state-of-the-art software and applications, and we pay the most amount of money for it. I think municipalities wind up being the proving ground for them to develop stuff they can sell on the open market. I understand that you have an ongoing agreement with them, and I don't want to change that agreement, but I think we need to hold these vendors accountable and have them work hard at meeting our needs. So reluctantly, I will approve I'll make a motion to approve this item. So.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent.
Thank you. And our next item is 7F1, and that was pulled by Councilmember Coleman. And then Councilmember Arias, I actually made a mistake that you also requested the same item. So we'll have Councilmember Coleman go first, and then Councilmember Arias. And then I know, Vice Mayor, you wanted to comment on this too.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one, I'm really upset about this one. When I came onto the council at the end of 24, the very first person that reached out to me was Sierra Club and these trees. And they come every other week or at least every other month about these trees, and staff never responds to it. We have asked over and over and over again, I have asked, other council members have asked for an update from staff on what the tree plan is, and we get nothing. And now we get a request for $180,000 to inventory the trees. Well, the young lady just told us there's 40,000 of them, so I don't know what we need to inventory exactly. But I don't want to see us paying $180,000 to this. And my recommendation would be to not approve this until staff comes back and gives us a tree plan and addresses some of these concerns that the community continues to bring up. And when you talk about doing an inventory, I really want us to consider whether we can work out some arrangement with either Cal State or Bakersfield College or one of their programs where maybe we can create some kind of program where their grad students can go out and count the trees rather than us paying $180,000 for it. So I guess.
Councilmember Coleman, is that your motion?
That would be.
A motion not to approve.
I kind of ramble, so I don't know entirely what my motion would be, other than not to approve this at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Arias.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the residents who came out in opposition to this particular item. I too am increasingly frustrated with the progress on our tree inventory, the replacement of our trees, the tree trimming process, and frankly, the lack of updates that we've received at council. As the chair of the Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, I'm going to make a request that every single quarter that the tree advisory group be able to provide an update to the Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee to provide the council and that committee an update on the progress of where that group is. If you look at the data and you look at crime rates, you can see that where there is urban greenery, where there's a tree canopy in place, that crime actually goes down. And I would argue that there is a multitude of reasons, even beyond just that one, for us to invest in our tree canopy. And I agree with Councilmember Coleman. We do not need an additional, plan or inventory contract in order to understand that we frankly do not have enough trees in the city of Bakersfield. And so I would actually ask that we reappropriate this $180,000 to directly go towards the planting of new trees throughout the city of Bakersfield. And I would argue that that is a drop in the bucket, but at least gets us moving in the right direction. That would be my preference. I don't know what the rest of my colleagues, how they feel about that. But my last thought and question really is, I made a referral several months ago asking that we prioritize tree planting at the mid-year budget, and I just wanted to ask what the update was on that particular request.
Councilmember Arias, our mid-year update to the council is going to be next month. Yes, we're still in February. It will be next month. We have noted a few recommendations about mid-year appropriations. I'm not trying to get too ahead of council in that process. I would note that we don't have a lot of one-time monies to work with at mid-year. And our recommendation is principally going to be to bank some of our resources to go into the next fiscal year. But we have listed what those requests are, and we'll bring those back in front of your council to show here's some of the requests at mid-year. But also I've already placed that as an assumed request for next fiscal year process as a CIP item. And so staff is aware and planning to discuss that as one of our CIP options in the upcoming budget cycle. If I just may take the moment with a question to also reflect that staff is more than willing to have presentations at the Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee. I think that's a good fit for this topic. I would note that we also had a referral to bring this topic to your council for a report item. We had intended for that report item to be on this evening's agenda. It didn't make it onto this evening's agenda, but at your next meeting, March 11th, we'll have an update on the Tree Advisory Committee at the 5:15 meeting of the City Council. And respectfully, I will just remind council that we provided a response by memo to your council in January of the questions and inquiries that had been placed by the Sierra Club. Your council received that update by memo in January.
Fantastic. Appreciate the update, and glad to hear that we can get some updates from the group and our Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee. And lastly, I would just make a plea to my colleagues that they join us in this fight and utilize the limited dollars that we currently have, this $180,000, to actually get started on regrowing and planting trees in the city of Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Coleman and Councilmember Arias. And most importantly, thank you to the advocates who come, as Councilmember Coleman said, week after week. And when I had made the referral to study our tree canopy as well as our urban heat island effect. There's, of course, work that was already happening, and that's thanks to your advocacy. And we have within our parks master plan, a great tree plan that exists in which, when studying the existing tree canopy coverage, Ward 1 has a 0.02% means of a tree canopy. That's the percentage of trees that exist within that ward. The population in 2020 of Ward 1 was about 57,000 people, and 6 years later, I'm sure it's grown. And the second lowest tree canopy is in Ward 7. It's 0.07%. That's not even 1% of those districts are covered in trees. And the population of Ward 7 in 2020 was about 59,000, and it's only marginally more in other districts, with Ward 4 having 2%. But even then, I just think that if that doesn't highlight the room to grow, I don't know what does. And this is a lengthy report, but as was highlighted by some of the folks that have come and spoke today, there are solutions that are within this recommendation, and some of them are as clear as, what $130,000 will buy you. It'll buy you 55 trees. What will $155,000 buy you? It'll buy you 70 trees. And this is illustrated in detail. And within this plan is also a list of trees that are drought resistant, climate resistant. So my question is what does the tree inventory do that this list of 24 within this plan? There's a tree palette. We have 24 tree types. What does a tree inventory accomplish that this doesn't?
I think Mayor and Council, I'll give a first try at this as well, but then ask our Parks and Recreation staff if they want to add some additional feedback. Again, speaking respectfully, not trying to be difficult, but the request is to have a strategy, and it's hard to have a strategy without the right information, and so this gives us the information to create the strategy. I think, do we know that there's a huge lack of trees in tons of places? Absolutely. Can we start going planting trees and ask our Parks and Rec staff to make some good judgments about where to plant those trees? I think yes, without further inventory. But to have a comprehensive plan about where to plant those trees and when and what phasing and sequencing, and having more knowledge of and understanding of what that inventory is, I think was the intent to create that strategy. Again, there's other ways to accomplish that goal. I think we can accomplish that goal without this inventory.
The plan created by MIG details recommendations, estimated costs, and phasing. Of course, if we need further guidance, I think the reason there's also percentages indicated as to which districts have the least amount of tree canopy. My recommendation tonight is we go with that. Let's start with the districts that have the lowest tree canopies. Let's start and let's get really specific into neighborhoods. There's great GIS mapping tools that show you exactly where there are no trees. And we have folks, stewards of our community, who volunteer their time to share their information, that are experts in their field, that are sitting in our audience today, that are on our tree committee, who I know are more than willing to point us to tools that they know that we even don't have. So my encouragement tonight is let's, as a council, if my council colleagues are also in agreement, let's start with the wards that have the least amount of trees. Let's do some neighborhood tree plantings with using, as Councilmember Adia said, this budget to start there, see how many trees that buys us, and let's really study and just start planting. And let's start planting and let's see those temperatures come down. Of course, it's easy to talk about warmer weather when it's almost March and the summer isn't right over us and the sun isn't shining over us. But this tree, we have a tree plan that exists. And my encouragement is that our Parks Department and the folks who have worked so hard to create this in the first place and who work with our advocates use the recommendations, use the recommended tree palette. It tells us the size of the tree. It tells us exactly the foliage. All of the information is there. So I'm in agreement with my council members that we don't need to spend extra money to create yet another tree inventory. Let's just get to work. We have the partners. The partners are even listed in the report that already exists for us. they're also here today, and I know there's a plethora of volunteers who would love to get to planting, but it's the city's job, it's our responsibility to make sure that when advocates are coming time and time again, that we are responsive and we are action oriented, and we aren't just creating more research to create research. My recommendation also to add to Councilmember Arias's referral tonight is we schedule a meeting with our tree committee and we meet with the agencies who are already planting the tree foundation locally, and we see how we can just disperse these trees. Are we buying them? Are we purchasing at once? And how do we get started? And let's really pinpoint a neighborhood where we can study this.
Thank you. Councilmember Coleman, do you have another comment?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. You know, that just brings me to my frustration here again, is that you made a comment that, well, we might need this inventory to help us plan where to plant, what please plant where, I don't know. But the point is that it brings us back to what's the tree committee been doing for the last year? You know, I remember the email that you sent out and the memo, and I do appreciate it. I do acknowledge that, and I appreciate that. But nothing's been ever presented to us here at the council publicly that shows that we're doing anything. And so now, a year later, we're asking for some money to go out and study how many trees when we already have some data to go on. So that just fuels my frustration that, you know, that we're not getting the kind of response out of the staff that needs to do that. And I apologize if I'm sounding angry or if I'm sounding derogatory. I'm not trying to be derogatory to the staff that works very hard every day, but we're not seeing the result. And I've said this before, that the city needs to move at the speed of life. And it can't take a year of committee meetings and that to not really have a plan what we're going to do. So that's my frustration.
Miss Barrow, you're out of order. Thank you.
That concludes my
Ms.
comments,
Barrow?
Mayor.
Thank you.
That concludes my comments.
So you have a motion not to approve staff's recommendation. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Wait a minute. I thought the motion from Arias was to
That was
move the money.
referral.
To move
Was
the
that
money,
a
the
motion?
180,000 to buy trees, plant trees.
To be clear, it was not a motion, but if Councilmember Coleman is open to amending his motion to clarify that this $180,000 bucket of money be utilized for future tree plantings.
Sorry, council members. I just wanted to clarify. I feel like a reappropriation may not be within the scope of the agenda item as agendized. I would, I have clear direction, I believe, and we can, as staff, come back to council with a future action related to the funding that will not go towards the inventory. But I feel like we could take a referral or direction on how to spend the money, but the motion itself should probably be focused on the action that's agendized.
Councilmember Arias? Good. Okay, so that's a referral. And Councilmember Smith?
Thank you. So could the motion be to bring back the 180,000 at the next meeting when we get the report and then determine how it's going to be spent?
Yes, Councilmember.
Councilmember Coleman, would you like to consider that as part of your motion?
So we're not approving the $180,000 to be
correct.
spent, just asking them to come back with something that, because I'm not interested in spending $180,000 for anything.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Madam City Attorney.
I would take the motion from Councilmember Coleman first to disapprove item 7F1. And my suggestion would be, Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Arias, that you direct the city manager to bring back the discussion of the 180 next time on how to spend it. I think that would be the cleanest.
All right. So let's finish my comment to say that I'm not willing to spend $180,000 on anything until the department comes back with their plan. they've been formulating over the last year. I just need to see more before I approve spending. And if it's 180,000, it's 180,000. But I would hope that by now they have a better assessment of what they're recommending. There's a lot of issues with trees. It's not only a matter of are we going to plant trees, it's how are we managing the trees we have. How, they continue to chop the trees down pretty much on Gosford. The guys just come along and whack them down. They don't cut them down, but they just whack the branches off. And maybe that's the way you're supposed to do them. But a lot of these trees, you can't cap them because then they don't grow. And so I'm really frustrated. I want to know what the plan is before we start spending money willy-nilly. So that's my comment. I'll get off that soapbox. I will go to vote this thing. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. So the motion is not to approve the agreement. Please cast your votes. If you haven't pressed the button.
Not to approve?
Not to approve. That's
Yes.
what, yes. So yes. So that would be a yes. If you want to not to approve, you're going to hit yes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent.
Thank you. And to all of you who participated in the process, thank you very much. And now we'll move on to item 7F3. Councilmember Bashir Tosh. We might just give a minute for our friends to clear if they'd like to leave at this point.
For item 7F3, I really don't like the signs. No, that's not why I had it pulled. I don't know how, maybe city attorney can help me direct in how I would make a referral for this or what it would be like. We need to create a policy as a city that limits change orders on any contract that we entertain to 5%. And if it's going to be an ask over 5%, I believe it needs to come to council. I'd hate for the city to get stuck in the process where we're accepting our lowest bids from companies with this giant change order that just kind of gets swept in through consent issues. So my motion is tonight to vote against this and it come back with a 5% change order and then some type of policy be brought forth to us capping change orders at 5%. I think it could be a shady practice with different contractors that do business with the city, taking advantage of the city, and the next thing, we're talking about trying to find money to fund all of the important projects. Oh yeah, that is what we're doing. So that's my motion to decline this. And if it comes back with a 5% change order, I would entertain approving this. And then a policy, my referral is that we create a policy as a city capping change orders at 5%. If it's going to go over, then it needs to come back to council for approval.
Madam City Attorney or Ms. City Manager, do you wish to comment?
My understanding, Mayor and Councilmember Bashir Tosh, I understand what you're saying. I think the motion is very clear. I get it. I'm looking at the city manager. I believe we already have a policy. It's actually a code on the books that requires 10% come back to the council, but we can certainly bring it back at 5% if you like.
Mr. Clegg?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, that is my understanding, is that any change order over 10% would already have to come back to this city council. Typically, our change order authority, we push hard to have that be within that 5 to 10% range. Sometimes there are unique types of projects where, particularly when we're going to be in the ground, where there are some unknowns that our practice has been to have some contingency that's just a little bit higher than that because we often find those unknowns and there's more expenses there. But again, a council policy call about what level should always come back to the council. There's going to be some projects that have more administrative reviews by council if the threshold's at a different level. But I don't begrudge council wanting to keep a close eye on those finances.
Thank you. So is the reason this is coming before us because that change order is almost 15%?
That is correct.
That's why this is here completely? Yeah.
That is, and actually, there's two different aspects to this item, Councilmember, just really quickly. One is the original contract. We're also asking in advance for a 15% change order contingency. We could also bring this item forward for the original contract without the 15% contingency.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want things like this to be hidden in our consent calendar. I'd like for them to be opened up to discussion so they don't just get swept through and then we make it a habit of wasting taxpayer money. If it's going to be a change order, maybe the policy reflects it. It goes into new business under that. I don't know. I mean, I've seen this time and time since I've been on here with an addition to change order, and it just eats me up because I know in a lot of, we deal with it in the business world, you know, when we're developing and have little things like that. But I've seen this too often and it bothers me. I think we need to stop the bleeding.
Mayor, just a little, again, not to belabor this point, but my recollection is that the reason why staff went ahead with the number 2 and pre-authorized the contingency is because previous councils wanted us to pre-authorize the contingency because it was coming back too many times. So I understand that there may be a difference now. So if we could just get clarity, Councilmember Bashir Tash, on your motion, is it to only accept 7F3 number 1, the bid, and approve the contract as is, and to not approve number 2 and come back with a more restrictive policy?
Yeah, I would be open to approving 1.
Okay, so your motion is then to approve 7F3 1 and to disapprove 7F3 2.
I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, do you clearly understand the motion? Yep. Vice Mayor. Oh, we have some questions.
Can you explain the adaptive signal coordination? Is this like you are changing the timing of the signal itself? It doesn't involve the crosswalk as well. I was curious about this because I had some signal issues in Ward 7. And I was just, if you could just explain how this
Mr. Myers?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor Court. So this is an adaptive signal project, so we're not changing any of the hard infrastructure. The traffic signals stay as is, but this is mostly electrical and communication work, adding sensors. I think there's a loop there too where we would be able to move traffic through more easily, not having to wait at a red light when there's nobody at the other directions at that intersection. Okay. So that's really just to improve the movements.
Okay. My curiosity also is around timing, like the amount of time that a pedestrian has to cross the road. What determines that amount of time, and how are we able to increase that at the city level in adherence with state regulations that exist?
So I would have to do some homework on that.
Okay.
But as to determine how we determine that length of time, my guess is based on our traffic engineering division that there's probably something in the MUTCD or some other California code that we adhere to.
Okay. I'd be curious to know what flexibility we have in improving or increasing how much time pedestrians have to get across some of these wider roads like Ming, White Lane, Panama, and if that's something internally we can do to increase that. I just always see pedestrians struggling to get across, and especially those with diverse abilities, whether they're pushing a stroller or they are in a wheelchair. We should be able to increase the amount of time pedestrians have. So sorry, that was inspired by this. Did you have something?
Madam City Attorney.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I can tell you from previous discussions on this issue prior to Mr. Meyer, it's my understanding that if a constituent lets the council member know or lets the Public Works Department know that they're having difficulty crossing a particular street with the time that's being allowed, that staff works with them and increases that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share that I also am very frustrated with the constant change orders that come along with particularly public works contracts, and the fact that in many cases that our hands are tied with having to accept the lowest bidder, even though they may be the very culprits that are constantly requesting change orders. So I just wanted to say that I share that frustration, and I appreciate that we're going to move forward with at least the first portion of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I like the Adaptive Light program, because that's one of my frustrations when I'm driving around, is how much time I spend sitting at a red light when nobody's coming. And it really, I complain about it when anybody will listen. So I do appreciate that program. But I struggle with approving a change order for contingencies at whatever percentage. If you made it 10%, they would spend 10%. If you made it 15%, they'll spend 15%. So I struggle with that a lot. But I recognize what the city attorney was saying, that this was a 10% thing was put in place by previous councils, so they wouldn't see these all the time. And so I guess I'd probably okay with staying with the policy, but this amount exceeds that. So I don't know that I have any more comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. Councilmember Smith.
I just wanted to comment on the pedestrian crossing. As I remember it, the state did change that rule a few years ago. It was 3 feet per second, and now it's 1.5 feet per second. And we are not in compliance in most of the city, and we were going to get in compliance. But as the city attorney stated, it's kind of on a as requested basis. Could you
Yeah, thank you,
shed
Councilmember
some light
Smith.
on that?
Yes, we're doing some on an as requested basis, and then we're phasing in as many as we can through projects like these more proactively. But it's going to take some time to address all of those crossings. So again, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, the case by case, and then as we're making updates and through projects like this, we're getting them updated to the new standard.
Yeah, I would say, I crossed at Stockdale and Buena Vista often, and I walk pretty fast, and I'm just barely making it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to.
Now it's on our list.
Yeah, is that a request?
What about short people?
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests. So you have a motion. Please cast your vote.
What is the motion?
The motion is to approve 7F31 and not 2.
Okay. So that's a yes. Okay.
Yes, it's a yes. What's that?
And then what's happening to 2? Is that going to come back?
2 is going to come back.
No, 2 is not coming back.
Not right now.
A yes vote
Yes.
is to accept number 1. A yes vote is to disapprove number 2.
No, you're just doing 1. Just forget. The yes vote is to accept number 1 and not number 2.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent.
Thank you. And before we go to 7I1, I think we'll probably need to take a short break. So let's take 7 minutes if we can. All right, so now continuing with 7I1. And 7I1 was pulled by Councilmember Bashir-Tosh and also Councilmember Weir. So Councilmember Bashir-Tosh.
Yes, I pulled this because for a variety of reasons, but first and foremost, I don't think it's good for the city a good look for the city to have items this large on the consent calendar without some type of presentation or discussion for the sake of taxpayers and their money that would be used in this project. I think it's worthwhile at least to give an opportunity to those that the money would be going toward or responsible for controlling that money to at least speak and give some insight into that. And so I wondered if you could provide me with some information before I get into the rest of my questions, what this is for and how this is going to be used.
Yeah, specifically to this allocation, Councilmember?
Yes.
Yeah, so this funding is coming out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And this is to help fund the construction of the new shelter at Open Door Network. As a reminder for council members, the current Open Door Network shelter is in what is understood as right now the current locally generated alternative route for the high-speed rail station. I would suggest that the shelter is also fairly aged in and of itself. It's probably overdue for a rebuild, but also with the catalyst of needing to move because of the high-speed rail station alignment. Open Door Network started a process of considering what it would look like to build a new shelter that would continue to serve their client population. Principally, their client population are homeless women and children. This is our only family shelter for women and children in the Bakersfield community. They have many other programs that are other service programs that are run out of the main shelter, but the principal purpose of this is to help with the funding capital package for the Open Door Network to build their new shelter.
So when the high-speed road, so did they eminent domain that property for their project, or that's still up in the air?
Yes, and they did, and that was part of the capital stack as well. Those funds went into the ability to purchase new property as part of the new shelter.
Okay, and is the city on the hook for keeping the open doors open every year? Is this like another agency or an extension of our city?
We are not. They are funded through a variety of other sources. There are some operating funds that go to Open Door, but principally those are on contract. So we have specific deliverables for specific funding sources that we provide, but it is not operated by and large by city resources, no.
Okay, and so we have, what we've been talking about is the fact that, and even tonight it was mentioned in an application to other things, getting in front of a problem before it becomes something that costs the taxpayers even more money. And something that we've wrestled with or that I've talked about passionately the last few months is programs and organizations that are kind of bleeding the city dry, and to where we get to the point where we don't have enough money to allocate toward additional jail bed space to get in front of the criminals who are wreaking havoc on our community, trees being planted, things that directly contribute to the overall successes of our community. And it concerns me and a lot of other community members when we see different programs and resources continue to get funding when everybody just kind of groups them together and thinks we're just, it's easy for this to look like we're just wasting taxpayer money. I see Mrs. Skidmore here. I would like to be able to ask some questions for her in regards to the Open Door Network. I think we owe it to our constituents that pay taxes to get our heads wrapped around what this is a little bit more. So, Ms. Skidmore, if you could come up, I would love to be able to pick your brain a little bit more.
Happy to answer any questions. I do have a quick presentation that I can flow through that hopefully will answer a majority of them. And then at any point, feel free to interrupt me.
Sure, no problem.
So I'll go through this really quickly. Thank you for allowing me to speak. The Open Door Network, for those of you that don't know, is a local 501c3 nonprofit organization. We focus on homelessness and victim services throughout Kern County. Our mission is to help those that come through our doors reimagine their lives through a whole host of services and programs. We run the only emergency shelter in Kern County that supports children on site, so we support families and women, as mentioned by Mr. Clegg. We have the only domestic violence emergency and transitional housing facility in Bakersfield. We also have another location in Delano. We are one of the few licensed child cares on a homeless campus in the nation, and we have one of the largest low barrier workforce development programs that are only focused on homelessness. The project before you this evening is a new emergency shelter that we are looking to pursue. Not looking to, we are actually about 50% in the depths of construction. The site plan is an entire city block in Ward 2 over behind Department of Human Services, California Union area. It was the old Kern Rock plant, and we have completely renovated the site, and we expect to be able to see this facility to come to fruition next summer. I'm going to flow through really quickly the 4 main buildings and the 4 main uses of the future campus. We'll be able to consolidate 3 of our existing locations into this new campus. So this will be our administration building. We'll have all of our housing, case managers, our therapists, our domestic violence services. We'll have medical and mental health offices in this building. We plan to partner with Kern Community College District and Bakersfield College to offer certificate programs and classes. And then we will have a small education center for other developmental programs. Of course, we'll have to have a dining hall for the clients that are staying with us. We have an existing warehouse where folks can come and drop off their donations. We utilize our residents and some staff to shift through those donations, and we redistribute back out to our clients or those in need in the community, also as part of the entire homeless system. We are working on a 2-story dorm and wellness center. So right now our current capacity is about 230 beds. With the conversations with the city, we need to expand by at least 100 beds based off of demand. So we'll be pursuing over 330 beds. It's looking more like 350 beds. And we will also be adding an entire wing that will focus on transitional wellness care. We keep that term very vague because the wellness community is very specific, but essentially keeping folks out of the hospital or quickly discharging them from a hospital setting into this facility. Of course, we'll have all wraparound services in here, computer labs, reading rooms, prayer rooms, all types of different opportunities for the families that are staying with us. And then, as mentioned, our child care and after school program, which is licensed through the state of California. It will allow us to double our existing capacity. The community will also be able to utilize this child care. There is not a lot of child care facilities in the area. And we are very excited to be able to expand this program. It's very successful for our clients. I think one of the main concerns about this project, as many projects, is it's expensive. We did accept $9 million from the federal government to be able to get this project going. In return, costs have now had to undergo prevailing wage, NEPA requirements, a whole host of environmental and site changes. So that is something we have taken into consideration. For kind of the breakdown of funding on how we're going to fund this thing, it's about $29.5 million in private funds, whether that's Open Door Network funds, new market tax credits, or private donors through a capital campaign. And we're looking at about $16 million in government funds. So very robust in how we are looking at funding this program. We have tapped the federal, city, state, county. We have our own funds that we received from the purchase of the property from High Speed Rail in 2019. We have been very successful in receiving new market tax credit dollars, and then we will be continuing to push for our capital campaign. Some highlights of the campus. So large campus, 74,000 square feet. As I mentioned, will increase overall capacity. Our focus is families and supporting single women. I mentioned that transitional wellness wing. So we're hoping to be able to serve 140 individuals in just that medical care component. Best practices is something we're going to be able to pursue with this new campus. So we're planning on having all clients achieve 40 plus hours of programming, whether that's through them gaining employment, volunteering, receiving education, going through faith-based programs, or medical and mental health services. I mentioned the licensed childcare facility. We also have a focus on violence prevention, which started with a program with the city of Bakersfield. So we put most of our teens through a violence prevention effort because we know that a lot of kids that are engaging in homelessness have a lot of trauma. So we're trying to break that early. We have a good neighbor concept and keeping the neighborhood clean. We can do that through our workforce development programs. And then we do not plan to offer any community meals, so we don't want a lot of constant movement in that community. And then we are partnering and having numerous conversations with additional partners to see how we can just really develop out this campus for everybody that's supporting homelessness. St. Vincent de Paul, Flood, and some other entities we're hoping can come and join us on the campus. Happy to answer any other questions, but really this $2.5 million is kind of part of a robust package that we have been working with the city on since the beginning. We're very happy to be able to constantly partner with the city in all of the different efforts. This campus is really going to be a culmination of all of our programs, being able to offer as many things in one location as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Skidmore.
Thank you. So would your project be able to proceed moving forward if this money wasn't given to the Open Door?
Yes, it would be a painful process because that would mean additional interest on a bridge loan that we're receiving from Valley Strong. We would have to increase our capital campaign ask to the community, but we would be able to continue.
How much reliance is there from the Open Door on the city of Bakersfield and the taxpayers on a yearly basis? After, let's say, this project is done and it's funded and you guys are fully operational, is this going to be continued partnership? And I say this, I'm asking for taxpayers. That's what I'm asking for.
We are funded about 95% of our overall $17 to $22 million budget, 95% funded through a taxpayer source. We do that by 60 different sources of grant funds. So we are constantly applying for different grants that will support our clients and the gaps that we see in the system. So that goes from our basic, domestic violence programs to the violence intervention programs that are kind of new and up and coming that we see as an important piece of our work. To the healthcare piece, which is a little bit different, can be grant funded or can be a fee for service. So we just do whatever we can to kind of interchange all of these funds to make the overall operations happen.
And how many families or women and kids would you say get turned away because you don't have space every month?
Right now we have a wait list of at least 10 today, of 10 families. I would say it varies. Probably on average, there's 50 to 60 families getting turned away every 6 months, and it can ebb and flow. We usually see an increase at the beginning of summer and during the holidays of when there's a lot more turnaways. It also becomes very difficult at our existing campus because we have to look at the age structure and the gender demographics of families because they are commingling in one room. And so we have to be cautious on how we place families together. We don't want a 16-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl from different families, for example. So in the new facility, that won't be a problem because everyone will have their own room. So hopefully, one, expanded capacity for less turnaways, and two, we won't have to deal with demographic issues that cause us to have to turn away as well.
And what is the Open Door doing now that it didn't do 10 years ago to generate, local philanthropy investments and, people, board members, people that really believe in the project itself and what you guys produce in our community?
So the biggest thing that we've done recently is tap into CalAIM dollars, which is something from the state of California, Medi-Cal related. It's a fee for service. It's a very new program. It allows us to really bring in a lot of general funds that we're putting back into this campus. The workforce development program is a huge piece of basic general funds and operational funds that we allow to go back into our facilities and back into our programs. We have been expanding our basic fundraising efforts by enhancing our team. Before we had a very small team of maybe a half a person. Now we have about 2 people that are focusing on that and just general awareness about the work we do. We are always looking at ways to kind of be more of a social enterprise model versus so heavily relying on grant funds, but it's also the work.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions for you. I appreciate you and your presentation and doing what you do in our community. When I think of our most vulnerable, I always go to women and kids. Maybe I was just raised that way. I don't expect a kid to go out and figure things out in life. So thank you so much. The rest of my questions would be for staff. The milestones that were set up on this construction time frame, if the project is going forward and it's almost at the end, why wouldn't we set one milestone toward the end? Hey, certificate of occupancy is issued by the city of Bakersfield, so that we know that we didn't just give money to an organization that took it and didn't deliver on their promise.
Two responses, Councilmember. One is the cost for the interest loan. If we waited until the very end, it just cost the project more total, and I would argue it probably cost the taxpayers total more for the project. Second is that I think if we were in a scenario where it seemed unlikely that project completion would occur, we might want to hedge our bets a little bit more. But I think that there's really no option but for Open Door Network to finish this project, complete it, get done. And I think the milestones are a reasonable set of benchmarks. But I think if we waited until the end, it's going to just escalate their costs more than I think is warranted.
Yeah, see, it seems like a lot of this has been a joint venture between the city and the Open Door, and I appreciate wisdom coming from a council of many and working together to accomplish things for our community. But what frightens me is the city being on the hook to continue to make things like this move. And the only reason I bring that up is because we're trying to secure funding to expand our accountability system that is lacking in our community, and we're spending so much money on cleaning up after bad actors in our community than we are actually getting in front of that. And so that's a major concern, not just of mine but other taxpayers. When are we going to be done putting money into this? When enough is enough? When are we gonna I think it's a valid concern. So how do we protect ourselves from being on the hook for the rest of my life and forking over tons of money into different groups? When does our thinking shift without doing what has been done for the last few months at meetings? How do I say that with a much calmer tone? How do we allocate money to what needs to be done and not just the cleanup fund? And then also, I meant to ask this in the beginning, is this money right here part of what we talked about in our budget when we were planning last year for the Open Door Network? Is this a part of that original ask, or is this in addition to?
Thank you, Councilmember. I think I can answer the last one easiest, and that answer is yes. This is part of what the council determined. It was already appropriated. This is just the actual agreement that puts that into effect. As to your other questions, I think I'm tracking, but there's some broad statements about which categories of funding. I think. The way I would answer that question first is I would also share what I think city staff and I think the city council as a whole feel a frustration that often folks look to the city to solve all problems, and we are not. We do not hold the jurisdiction or the resources to solve all of our community's problems. Many of our challenges around, individuals feel like, the city should do something more about, better education. Okay, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of property tax dollars that go to school districts to solve that problem. Similarly, I think a lot of members of the community feel like, the city should solve homelessness. Okay, that's well outside of our control, in particular of systems that do receive funding and have legislative responsibilities and authorities to solve some of the underlying root issues for topics like homelessness that's not within our control. I think how does the city make those decisions and get ahead of that? That is the budget process each year. It's the city council who makes those important decisions. I think you brought up important points about how do we create more accountability. I think the first step was, I would argue 6 years ago, there was a question mark about whether or not we had the ability to truly enforce. We invested, we've demonstrated that we now can enforce, and what's missing is accountability. So I think we have to continue to work with other system partners. There's important partners in county agencies, there's important partners in state agencies, there's important partners in the private sector, as well as nonprofits and other institutions to pull their weight in addressing the underlying issues that we're talking about. I would even argue that our push to increase accountability is not a city responsibility, it's a county responsibility. The county should be holding these folks accountable. Yet our constituents look at us and say, do something, please, and we have the ability to do something, get creative and do more, so we are doing that. But I think it's always going to be a really important strategic decision of this council to decide, how do we spend those dollars? Do we spend them in prevention, intervention, accountability? And I would argue that putting all of our funding into one strategy doesn't typically create the best results. But if we also spread ourselves too thin, then we're not getting enough impact in any one of those areas.
Yeah, and I think that, the citizens of Bakersfield have spoken time and time again, and I think it, at the end of the day, we're elected to represent our wards, but people have the same frustration, and I don't think that people just want, for me at least, I should say, in the tens of thousands of emails that I've received, it's not a matter of just like making poof, crime has disappeared. People want accountability. And when you create a system that doesn't provide accountability for people that are in our community, they just get to do whatever they want. And they terrorize the community, and there's no accountability. And we spend millions of dollars on cleaning up the lack of accountability. And so I think getting in front of that, not just education, because people, there's so many resources now. It's nauseating the amount of the same resources we have over and over to help individuals get clean and sober, and yet they still don't choose those avenues because it's difficult to ask that of someone that's not in their right mind. They're on a delusional drug binge. And so the city with PSVS was really expecting a system of accountability to be created in our community, not a giant dustpan and broom. And I think that that's the shift that we need to make as a local government, as an elected body, that people in our community want more accountability. And that's one of the other main reasons for pulling this off tonight. The fact that we would just push $2.5 million through consent calendar without a presentation of what this is going to, in my opinion, it's a slap in the face to any constituent that pays taxes in our community. We're talking because they hear the frustrations, they see the lack of accountability, and they're like, well, now they're just wasting this money. And this is something that was budgeted into our current budget cycle and last year that we talked about. This isn't a new thing, as you've said and addressed. And so how do people know that? How do people know that they provide, they're the only emergency shelter for women and children? I mean, that changes perspectives, and it helps the community to form a narrative that is proper and true. Instead of one that's just super emotional and, that's not going to get us anywhere. We need and want accountability. I don't even know how I would make a motion for a specific amount of money being put on something that we would talk about and actually discuss, or demand some type of presentation like, hey, listen, if this money's coming your way, you better be able to justify the ask, because when constituents come saying, why is my tax dollars being spent on this, we need to be able to give them an answer as to why we believe this is a good thing for their money to be used on, not the city's piggy bank. It is the taxpayers' money. And just putting this through consent and hoping that it got pushed through and moving it is not the right way of doing it. And so I hope that we'll learn from this moment and be good stewards of our time and resources for taxpayers, and that we will ask more of our partners to show up and be able to speak to what this is all about and why they need it, so that we can make an educated decision that we can all live with. So that's my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Bashir-Tosh. And Councilmember Weir, you also asked for this to be pulled.
Thank you, Mayor. I am trying to we are in a position this year in our fiscal year. It's going to be a tough and a tight go. I mean, we just have a lot of things that need to be taken care of, a lot of things that we need to do, and no matter how you spread it, there is never going to be enough to go around. And I appreciate the circumstance that the Open Doors has. I hope they do a wonderful job and they continue on. But when I sit and look at our budget and talk to other people about our budget, I'm not sure that this would fit very well in a conversation that I would have with other people out in the community. Some would like it, but there's a lot of people out there that are not happy about allocations and the use of money, and I can understand that. I get frustrated myself. It is a problem that we have, and we rely on a tremendous amount of federal and state money, and for the people that do contribute to this, I salute them. But I don't see how the city in the state that is in really has money to spend on projects like this. I think it's a good project, and I wish them well, but we've got a lot of needs, and we have very few ways to fill those needs. And it's going to be very tight. We've already talked about the budget. It's going to be tight, and unless some miracle happens, it's not really going to change. So I appreciate their work on this. I looked through it. It's beautiful. It's a little extravagant, if you ask me. But I think that this city needs to pull back its wings. We cannot keep doing this forever, and I feel like this is a situation where I can't support it. So I wish you the best, but I can't support this.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. The word homeless industrial complex comes to mind, and we all hear it all the time. And I'm going to do a little Jekyll and Hyde here, because first of all, I want to say that I appreciate the work you're doing at the Open Door Network. Most people don't know that you house 100 kids every night. And when you think of homeless, you don't necessarily think of children, but the Open Door Network caters mostly to women with families or women with children and single women. And so it's a little unique in the homeless picture. So I appreciate everything you're doing there. I would like to hear a little bit more from you, Ms. Skidmore, on what the work you're doing, how that serves to reduce homelessness. I mean, it's one thing to take people off the street and give them a place, but how does that keep other people from becoming homeless? Can you help me with that?
Absolutely. Our goal is to end the generational cycle of homelessness, and so we do that by investing in the children. I would say our current facilities right now do not allow us to bring in the programming that is needed to be able to truly provide the support for these children to not become symptoms of homelessness as adults. You can all imagine if you're homeless as a child, you're experiencing significant trauma. When we merged our two former entities together in 2022, Bakersfield Homeless Center and the Alliance Against Family Violence, the great component of that merger was we could bring our therapist from the domestic violence side over to the homelessness side and start investing in the youth in mental health support. So we do that now on a very regular basis. So mental health support is key. We need to be able to bring outside partners in for mentorship, faith-based programming. We need to have more robust teen programs on our new campus. And the goal is to end that generational cycle of homelessness that's currently being experienced in our community. Another big component is that workforce development piece. Almost 90% of those that have gone through our workforce development program that are engaged in a 40-hour week or a 20-hour week part-time, full-time job with benefits, they are not going to go back into homelessness. That workforce development component is a key to success. And so that is why we constantly are driving home that our clients are engaging in workforce development, that are trying to get a pathway to employment, and that we have continuous contracts and partners, through a whole host of entities because it works. And then, of course, the housing piece, we believe it doesn't, right now it's being forced to be housing first. It's something that, we appreciate. We don't think it's necessary for success, but when we do get a family housed, we know that the children benefit from the housing component.
Thank you. I liked the lot you guys chose because you also serve to improve a blighted area. So that's a really good location for you guys over there. But, the question becomes when we talk about this homeless industrial complex is how does it end? When is it that we can start spending less on homelessness and spend money on other things? Do you have anything to say about that?
I have a lot to say about that. We don't have enough time because we all want to go to sleep. Systems are broken, right? It's not just the homelessness system, it's the judicial system, it's the overall poverty system. I mean, there's so many systems in our world that are broken. This is one of them. I think what I appreciate about the city's involvement, and I think you all are frustrated by it, but I appreciate the city's involvement because it does sophisticate nonprofits in bringing the next level to their operations. And I don't think that has always been the case. I think COVID was a very painful time that caused an influx of funding into the homelessness world that created a lot of chaos that we are still working through as providers, that the community is still seeing the impacts of those craze of funds, the craze of individuals now facing homelessness from the COVID era. And so I think while we're focused on the inflow and we see this continuous inflow issue, I do think we are getting more efficient and we are better understanding how to create milestones around the dollars. And I think the city is showing that on a regular basis with how we have to now prove the money was spent on exactly what it was meant to be spent on, that the outcomes we said in a grant that we are achieving, that was not always the case, right? You usually just got the grant and you got the dollars down the road. That's not how things are. So it's sophisticating our nonprofits. And then I think the real tough thing is these are people that are dealing with major life crises. And until we allow them to have programs in place to pursue medical mental health, to pursue workforce development, to have a purpose in life, until we push that towards their depravity, we won't see good outcomes. And I will say since COVID, none of those things have been mandated. We can't mandate them. They don't allow us to mandate them in the state of California. That hopefully will be a shift in the next few years to where we can start pushing folks to programming to allow them to see their potential. I hope that answered your question.
That does. Can you give us you mentioned the money. You had $29 million coming from private sources and some other. What is the total budget for this project?
$46.5 million.
$46.5 million? Mm-hmm. Okay. So our share is 5%. My math's really bad. So.
Don't ask me either.
Yeah.
And actually, Councilmember Coleman, not to complicate their issue further, but there have been other funding sources. The city had HAP dollars that was allocated into this project, and another tranche, before. And so I would say that our allocation is close to 10%.
Okay. And this, while we're on the subject of this source of money, money is coming from where?
This is from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think to some of the other comments, I would point out that it was a decision of the council at last budget year's cycle to not take it from other funds, to use the existing funds in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund instead of making a new allocation for this purpose, so that we could have room for other priority projects in our other CIP projects.
And does that leave us a balance in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or does that wipe out that fund?
It does not wipe out the balance. There's still some other funds in the trust fund. The city attorney was reminding me that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is principally funded by the Public Safety Vital Services tax in prior years. We've actually had state matches to that fund, which has been helpful. We've been able to not quite double our money, but close to double our money on our allocations to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in past years. And so there is some fund balance still in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we're actually going to be seeing some dollars come back into the trust fund because one of the projects that we had funded received a federal earmark that's going to help that project get to conclusion, and we'll have some more money coming back into the trust fund.
All right. So based on that, I would say from my perspective, if this was new money or a new request, I would be opposed to it. But because we've already allocated that money in a previous budget year with the intent to spend it on homelessness, it makes sense to me to go ahead and approve this. So that's the end of my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by saying that unequivocally, these are the allocations that I'm so proud that the City of Bakersfield stands by. Just a few Fridays ago, very late, I called Lauren with an impossible situation, and it was late into Friday evening, and I had a constituent call me with a personal matter, and I had no idea who to call. And I immediately thought of calling Lauren. So thank you, Lauren, for stepping away from your family and taking that call and connecting that woman with the resources she needed. And she has now found all the resources she needs in order to address an extremely impossible situation in case of domestic violence. And I thank you for that, and the staff at the Open Door Network. The constituents that need these services and that need the services of the Open Door Network aren't calling in. They're not writing emails to us. They are quietly building the courage to call someone and call a community member who will listen to them and believe them. And they're calling whoever they can when they're ready to call. And that's probably why the voices we hear are asking the questions that some of my colleagues have highlighted. But the constituents that benefit from these services, and benefit is a very generous word, I think these services catch them before it's too late. And my ask for Lauren has been, I've sent you so many people and I've called you so many times that I'm sure a Punjabi case manager is not far away. And unfortunately, domestic violence and situations that threaten the safety of women and young children is something that I'm regularly receiving calls about. It is way outside of the scope of my role as a city council person. But when you represent a community, you represent the entire community. And that includes those who are most vulnerable. And it includes the women who are building the strength to find safety and shelter for their children. And the Open Door Network has been resourceful. They have gone out and found federal, state dollars. They've applied for grants. They've even found tax credits. And I think that as the stewards of and those who are responsible for meeting the community members and the community-based organizations that are fulfilling services and are taking care of our constituents in ways that we within the government cannot and we can't reach, we thank you. And we thank you for being good partners and continue to hope to be good partners to you as well. And I just hope that you'll invite this council to the Open Door Networks, whether it's the next event, whether it's the community fundraiser where you have people come that give testimony that have actually have went from being survivors to being employees of the Open Door Network and have gone full circle and now continue to pour that love back into the community and the vulnerable individuals in the community that need it most. So I just request you invite this council so they could hear it firsthand as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question for Ms. Skidmore. You spoke earlier about the families that you unfortunately have to turn away. What happens to those families when you're not able to provide services? Are there other community partners in the Homeless Collaborative or the ecosystem that can help provide support? Do they end up in the streets? Can you share some anecdotal stories about what happens to those families?
Sure. Usually by the time I receive a call, the individual has been on a wait list for a period of time. Flood is calling to directly ask if there's any way we can move anyone around or add additional beds, which by that point we usually have exhausted all resources. Flood will tap into their general fund and or their reserves to try to keep them in a hotel longer because they've usually by this point already exhausted any of their allowable hotel stays. So what will happen is they will be put back on the streets. Hopefully by then a case manager has connected them with a family member, a friend, additional resources, somewhere for them to go. That's very unlikely by this point, so they usually do end up on the streets. The issue with our population is if there's a child that is engaged with this family and we know that they're going to go on the street, depending on who is a part of this call, they are mandated reporters and therefore have to engage with CPS. The children are likely taken and the family then is dealing with homelessness while their children are in foster care. So it makes a very fragmented process. It actually, in my opinion, ends up costing taxpayer dollars a lot more because now you have multiple government entities involved with multiple resources having to be engaged with. So that's the last case scenario, but it has been a very difficult one when we have families with children that we aren't able to serve.
So not only do you have families who are, unfortunately living on the streets, but you also have parents who are now ripped away and separated from their own children who are taken away from them by Child Protective Services.
Correct.
I rarely bring my faith to this dais, but the God that I pray to calls for his children to care for the least among us. And when you have community partners like yourself who, do everything that you possibly can to serve this particular population, this subgroup, women and children who are in desperate need of a roof over their head, a meal on their table, and clothing and shelter, I don't think that you should be forced to beg for these dollars to be able to continue to do that work.
Thank you.
And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the team, your entire team and all the work that they do to support our community, our unsheltered population. And I'll make a motion tonight that we approve this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Ms. Skidmore, you had mentioned the Wellness Center, and that's something a little bit different than what you've had. We've heard from the hospitals that there is a tremendous amount of cycling in and out for people who come for emergency services. Can you comment more on the Wellness Center along with mental health?
Absolutely. The Wellness Center will be able to have 32 to 35 beds focused on individuals that are currently homeless and or were in a hospital setting and the hospital cannot release them back into homelessness based off of their attentive level of care. Hospitals are mandated to keep folks if they can't find a placement for them, and so it becomes a very tricky balance and a very expensive balance for them to keep them in an emergency room, or they are now holding a bed for somebody that is in true need. So the goal is for this wellness center to have multiple opportunities for a hospital to be able to discharge to us. It could be a level of care from, like a home health type system to we are hoping that at some point we will have a solidified conversation with a large-scale medical provider for clinicians on site that aren't our staff but are actually clinical staff. We are also having conversations with the street medicine organization that does amazing work in town. They have a lot of folks that are dealing with on the streets that are interested in detox, but they can't go to a congregate setting like most of the shelters because it triggers reuse that triggers anxiety and depression, they could come to this wellness center while they're working through detox, and then ideally they would be able to promote to stay with us or at another shelter. So there's going to be multi-levels of healthcare engagement. And then in another building is actual exam rooms, actual therapy rooms, where we'll be able to provide mental health services through our own clinicians and outside clinicians. And then we'll continue to have outside providers such as Clinica Sierra Vista to be able to come on site and provide exams like they do now. They just won't have to have their mobile van. They'll be able to actually have a room to be able to service folks. So over 150 individuals, we think, will be able to be supported in just that wing alone.
So with the detox services and then potential mental health services, we're addressing some of the biggest challenges to homelessness as people cycle in and out of the system without being treated effectively. Do you feel that the new facility will allow you to address some of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, colleagues, I don't see any of the requests for comments. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gonzalez absent and Councilmember Weir voting no.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council and Mayor statements.
Currently, I don't see anything on the screen. Is anybody wanting to speak? Well, this is a miracle. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for engaging in this process. And so we stand adjourned at 7:35. Too late. Oh, Councilmember Bashir-Tosh, you're changing. Well, would you like to come back in? Okay, so sorry. Well, I didn't. You can announce it to everyone. I would like someone to